We're not deciding it in Hebrew. I will decide it in Hebrew, and you can have in mind, or if you can say after me. Chapter 121 in Tehillim. Shir Ma'alot, Esai Nai, Ele Arim, Me'ayin, Yavo Ezri. Ezri, Me'im Adonai, Osei Shamayim Va'aretz. Al Yiten, Lamod Raglecha, Al Yanum, Shomrecha. Hinei, Lo Yanum, Velo Yishan, Shomer Israel. Adonai Shomrecha. Adonai Tzilcha. Al Yad Yaminecha. Yomam Hashemesh Lo Yakeka. Ve'yareach Balayla. Adonai Ishmorcha Mikol Ra. Ishmor et nafshecha. Adonai Ishmor Seitcha Uvacha Me'ata ve'adolam. Okay, a part of our challenge is, and a part of our responsibility is that despite the dire situation, and even when we hear very bad news, is to continue with life. It's sometimes easier to close everything, close the books, and close the Torah Center, and close the lights, and go down and depressed, which is the natural thing that we would have liked to do sometimes. But what God wants us to do is to hold strong and to continue life. And I think there is a great revenge to our enemies when they see that life continues. So that's what they want, to destroy life. It's not only the personal lives of lives that were taken, it's the lives and the spirit of the Jewish people in general. There was a famous writer, author, I'm sure that everyone heard about him, famous Elie Wiesel, famous Holocaust writer, many books, and he received a Nobel Prize for Peace, many other recognitions. And he was by the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe in the 1950s, out of Fabrengen. And the Rebbe demanded by him to start a family. And he turned to the Rebbe and says, I don't feel like starting a family knowing that Hitler is around the corner. Not now, another time. What's the point? Maybe at that time it looked very strange and weird to mention another Hitler. Everybody was believing that Hitler is over. After October 7th, we see that unfortunately Hitler is still came around the corner. You know, looked like a Hamas guy. It's all the same. But the Rebbe didn't tell him, don't worry, Hitler is not coming. You can relax. Tried to give him some therapy and calm him down and say it's all going to be okay. This is the last tragedy that ever happened. The Rebbe told him that despite all the difficulties, you must start a family because this is how you're going to revenge the Nazi Germany. The Rebbe said, what did Hitler want? He wanted to bring an end to us. If you are going to remain the way you are now, with the decision that I'm not building a family, so you're telling Hitler, you know what? You're right. I'm giving you my mandate. You're born. But if you're going to decide and choose to continue with life, that's going to be the worst thing that Hitler wants to see. So either way, that's why we are tonight learning our weekly Torah Parsha class, which is only a good news, Bezrat Hashem. This week is Parsha Toldot. I wrote on the publicity that we are going to discuss tonight, can you sell your portion in the world to come? That's the topic. What does it have to do with Toldot? You're going to see in a moment. But first, I want to share with you a story. This story I heard 1979 from the Rebbe's personal secretary, Rabbi Groner of blessed memory. Rabbi Groner passed away during the first wave of Corona in Brooklyn in the Passover of 3 years ago. And I heard it from him 1979. It was the first time visiting New York. I went to the Rebbe for Yom Tov, for the high holidays, my father and mother. And my little sister was then a few months old. Now she was with Mrs. Raskin from Larnaca, Cyprus. She's the shlucha of Chabad, and a big girl, many children on her own, married children, grandchildren. But she was a little girl in my mother's hand. We went to spend the entire high holidays, Kippur, Sukkot, and Chastorah by the Rebbe. The first night Sukkot, I was 10 years old. So now I gave you my age. I was 10 years old, and my father to the Afabrengen. Afabrengen means like a Hasidic gathering in the Sukkah of Rabbi Groner. Just mentioning in parentheses, the year later, 1980, the Rebbe mobilized all the Hasidim to spend the whole night dancing. And that's what happens in Lubavitch today, till today. Dancing even on the street. They closed down Kingston Avenue, and from Montgomery Street, they all gathered and danced with music for 7 days. But in those days, there was no dancing on the street, there was Fabrengens. So my father took me to Rabbi Groner for a Fabrengen. And when we came to the Fabrengen, I don't remember much, but I remember a story that he shared. And I was then very touched by that story. The story he shared was that 1949, it was Thursday, the eve of Shavuot. Shavuot is a 2-day holiday, which at that year, 1949, you can check it on your Google calendar, that would have occurred on Friday and Saturday. Between Thursday night is Yom Tov. Dear passed away in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, a chassid with the name of Reb Michael Dvorkin. Reb Michael Dvorkin was a great chassid back in Russia of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was the man that when the previous Rebbe was sentenced to exile by the Russian communists, he was sent to Kostroma as a part of his punishment for spreading Judaism. So this chassid, Reb Michael Dvorkin, was here, bring that chair closer. This chassid, Reb Michael Dvorkin, was sent by the previous Rebbe, so-called to pave the road. It's like Yaakov Avinu, just like Jacob sent Yehuda ahead of him to Goshen. Before Jacob came down to Goshen with his children, which was in Egypt, so it says in the Torah that Yehuda shalach lehoiros lefonov Goshna. Yehuda was sent ahead of him to Goshen. And he established a school, like Shiva Academy. So when Yaakov comes down to Goshen, he's going to find a kind of settled Jewish experience, maybe a mikveh, maybe some a store for bagels and lax, chopped liver. You want to come. A Yid comes from Israel to Goshen. He wants to be able to feel at home. That was Yehuda's job. This chassid with the name of Michael Dvorkin, he was sent by the previous Rebbe to go ahead of time to Kostroma once the sentence was given, and to gather a few kids up in the cheder, a school. Previous Rebbe said, I don't want to go there before there's a school there. He was sentenced to exile because he kept on opening schools, and he said, if there's a place of exile, there must be some Jewish kids there. So make sure there's a school before I get there. That was the job of Reb Michael Dvorkin. Matter of fact, he was there when the great news arrived that the Rebbe is released of jail. Obviously, it was at the condition that he leaves Russia, doesn't stay there. And he was the one dancing in the streets, composing the famous Hasidic song in the Russian words that God is one and there's no one but God. Niet, niet, niet kavo, kromim bogo, ad navo, ad navo. That was Michal's working song. And he later he came to Israel, and from there he came to America in 1948, and a year later he passed away. Rabbi Gruner said when he passed away, the news came that the Rebbe was crying bitterly, very bitter about his passing. And it was Thursday, and the Rebbe said, we have to see that he should get buried today. Because usually if you don't get buried on Erev, on the eve of Yom Tov, tomorrow is Friday, so there's no burial on the first day. And then the next day is Shabbos, so there's no burial on Shabbos. And then you have to wait till Sunday, maybe Sunday also in America, Sunday, who knows if you can find the burial arrangement. So the body is going to be waiting in a freezer for 3 days. The Gemara tells us, the Rebbe said, it says in the Talmud that anyone who dies on the eve of Shabbos, and he gets buried then, it's considered a good sign for him because he goes straight to rest. And you come up in heaven Friday afternoon, Shabbos, it goes down the Gehenna, hell gets locked down. Nobody is Shabbos in heaven. So when you come in on Shabbos, you go straight to the Kiddush, and then once you're in the Kiddush, you have to stay with the Kiddush crew, and you keep on the good life after. So let's bury him now. But there was an issue. The issue was that in order to get a certificate of death, you need to have your doctor to sign it up for you. Michal Dvorkin didn't have a doctor. He came to America, he was eating herring schmaltz, and he was a doctor. He actually died, but he didn't have a doctor, he never saw a doctor. And for a doctor who doesn't know you to sign up a certificate of death is a problem. So one doctor didn't do it, and he even said, the doctor, a famous doctor, he said, I can't do it, even if I'm going to sign it against the law, it's not going to be acceptable because I just became a doctor and I'm not even practicing for a year. This is a doctor who came from Europe. I knew the doctor. So the Rebbe said there was a doctor with the name of Dr. Ness. There was a doctor in New York. You should contact him. So Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary, contacts Dr. Ness. Did I ever tell you the story?
No.
Dr. Ness, and he tells Dr. Ness there is a Jew with the name of Michal Dvorkin who just passed away. And Rabbi Schneerson, he wasn't Rebbe yet, but he was already famous because of the activities he was involved, wants to talk to you. It's very important for him to arrange if he can sign us a certificate of death, and then he can release the body and the funeral will bury him before it's getting late. The Thursday afternoon already, we have a couple hours left before Yom Tov. The Rebbe wants to see him being buried now. Dr. Ness said, let me talk to Rabbi Schneer. I want to talk to him first. Rabbi Groner said, I was there. He took the phone. He tells Rabbi Schneer, it was the Rebbe, later he called the Rebbe. And he says, listen, for me to let you, that's for me, thank you. Find something better if you can. Decaffeinated, yeah, please. If you want to bury him, for me to write a certificate, I can do it. But what's going to happen is, thank you so much. What's going to happen is that I'm putting myself in jeopardy. I might lose my license. So I want something from you, a commitment from you. What do you want? Says Rabbi, I want you to sign me over. You share in the world to come. Whatever you own, You giving it to me? The Rebbe says, not a problem. I'm giving you half of it. The Rebbe said, if I have, the Rabbi Goldman said, if I have something in the world to come, half of it is yours. And signed a deal, and Rabbi Dworkin, Rabbi Michal, was buried that afternoon. He's actually buried till today. He's close, very close, next actually to the previous Rebbe, and today is the Rebbe's Ohel, which is the resting place in Queens. Rabbi Michal Dworkin is right there. He was there before the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe only passed away in 1950. He was buried in 1949. I have a year. Rebbe sold him his Gan Eden. Sold him his Gan Eden. The idea of giving and selling and giving up your wealth to come. There's other Hasidic stories of great people who did things like that. There is a famous story, but there's a famous story about Reb Nochem of Chernobyl. Nochem of Chernobyl was an early Hasidic master. He was a colleague of the Alter Rebbe of Shneur Zalman. And the story famously goes, he came to a certain town and he realized that they have difficulties with raising funds for a mikveh, to build a mikveh. And the one who can provide the funds is a wealthy person in town, but he is not convinced that that is what he should do. But he can make it happen. The Nochem of Chernobyl went and tried to persuade him to give the funds for the mikveh construction. And he said, if the Rebbe gives me his share in the world to come, I will consider it. And Mordechai of Chernobyl says, "Ajalasta, bevakasha." Sure, take my share in the world to come, and that's he gave it up for the sake of a mikveh. So you should know that this concept, as much as it seems unusual, which is unusual, to give up something important as you share in the world to come, that's what else do you have if not the share in the world to come? Is an idea which is being discussed also halachically from a point of law, from a legal perspective. Is it possible to sell or to gift something which you don't even own yet? In Jewish law, there is a famous concept, Ein Adam Makne Dovar Sheloi Balo Olam. A person cannot sell or give up something which did not arrive in the world yet. How does it work with futures in the stock market? It's a separate discussion. David Schneider will tell you all about it. But the idea of selling something which doesn't exist, didn't happen. You don't own your share in the world to come. Once you finish your life, you're going to come to a place called the world to come, and you're going to be rewarded with schar and Gan Eden and paradise. But now you don't own it. It's not something that you own, and halachically it doesn't work. I can't sell you a tree, the dates of a tree, which the dates didn't grow yet. It has to be something tangible. That's the way a sell works. That's the way a purchase works. When you're selling something, the buyer needs to be convinced that he's getting something for the money he pays. And if it's untangible, if it doesn't exist, and it doesn't have any specific, substance, so then what are you selling him? So he's not even really acquiring it. He doesn't really buy it properly in order to apply the proper definition of a sell and a purchase. So there's a big discussion, like I said, in the different halachic authorities. How does it work in similar situations? This question comes up in this week's Parsha by the great commentator, the Moroccan sage, Rabbi Abenu Chaim ben Attar. Abenu Chaim ben Attar is the famous Orach Chaim HaKadosh, who lived a little over 300 years ago, which he discusses this question on the story meet Jacob and Esau, when the firstborn rights were purchased by Yaakov. As the story goes in this week's Parsha, Yaakov was, after many years of challenges and difficulties, and this is where Rivka, Yitzchak's wife, together with her husband, are praying endlessly to God and trying whatever it takes to be blessed with a child. And at the age of 60, the Torah says they finally gave birth not only to one child, but they had twin children with a very difficult pregnancy. A pregnancy which brought out the mother to go seek out advice. What's going on? I feel very weird, very unusual pregnancy. And she discovered that she has twins. And those twins were the famous two children which took two different directions in life. One was Yaakov, which is described as Ish Tam Yoshev Alim, a man of simplicity, dwelling in the tents of study, not only in tents, but in the tents of study of the famous yeshiva which existed at the time, known as the Academy of Shem and Aver. And Esau was a man, a hunter, the man in the field, right? Esau. And Esau came back from one of his hunting journeys, very hungry, very, very tired. And Jacob was, while being in the kitchen preparing a lentil soup, because the Medrash says it was during the Shiva, the period of mourning after Avraham, and therefore they served lentils. Lentils is apparently a dish for mourners. The Medrash says that lentils are round. And when a mourner sits Shiva, you should provide them with a dish which personifies the circle of life.
Is that why we eat eggs?
And that's why we give him an egg at the first meal returning from a funeral. And we also provide a bagel, anything which is round. For this idea, it's called the food of a mourner. And lentils are similar. Lentils, I guess, takes more time to cook than an egg. And, you have to make it maybe just to spice it up. An egg is an egg. You just put it in the pot, and at some point it's going to get ready to be eaten. And Esau wanted lentils, and Yaakov said, the pot is in my hand. If you want lentils, you got to give me something that you only have, which is the right of the firstborn child. Jacob was the firstborn, Esau was the firstborn child. It came out of the womb before his brother, before Jacob. And he gave it to him. He sold it to him. And that sale was not just a kind of mockery, the kind of, a joke, I'm giving you lentils and I'm becoming a firstborn. If I wasn't born a firstborn, how can I be a firstborn? Like the famous joke story, they say that the guy came to the rabbi wanting to become a Cohen. He was ready to pay a lot of money for it. And the rabbi said, why do you want to become a Cohen? He said, why? Because my father was a Cohen, so I would like to become a Cohen too. If your father is a Cohen, then you don't have to buy to be a Cohen. You are a Cohen. But if you don't know what a Cohen means, so you think that, but to be the firstborn, what does it mean to be a firstborn? If I did not walk out of the womb first, then I'm not a firstborn. But the firstborn has certain rights. Rights. For example, it comes to the inheritance. It is the firstborn who gets a double portion. more than the rest of the family. The firstborn has certain responsibilities. Even in the Mishkan, it was the firstborn who served as priests before the priests were chosen to be the priests. The firstborn always have rights. So here, to the point that even it was actually used. It was used later in the story of the burial of Jacob. The Gemara tells us it was used because what happened was when Jacob was born. Jacob's over the story of Yitzchak's, the Gemara somewhere. Oh yeah,
when
right.
Asaph had was
Yeah. So what happened was they came to Me'oras HaMachpelah. They came to the cave in Hebron, and Esau did not let Jacob to be buried there. And Mamre, he said, "I'm not letting you." Why? Because he says, there is Adam and Eve, and then there is Avram and Sarah, and Yitzchak and Rivka, and I should be there. So what was the claim? Why does Jacob deserve to be buried here? He told them, because you sold the firstborn right. And because you sold it, the Gemara says in Sota, Omrule is vinte. You sold it. You sold it. Then he started arguing. I only sold this. I didn't sell that. They said, no. You sold the firstborn right, and therefore you don't have that privilege of being buried here anymore. And that actually was used against Esau. So you see that the sell was not some type of myth, sometimes of theoretical sell. It was actually a proper sell, which was used against him.
But it's different what you said. Firstborn, it's physical, right? And Olam Haba is question. What you said. It's not maybe not what you really hoping in your hand, but firstborn, yes, what he did hold in his hand.
Yeah, but there is no substance to it. First of all, this idea that is going to get the double portion is only going to be materialized and to be actualized when the father dies. So at this point, when he's buying from him that right, the double right, the double owning of the father's inheritance doesn't exist. It's not there anymore. It's a potential gain, but that's exactly the point, that you do not sell something which is only going to happen in the potential. The Gemara actually uses it in cases like somebody tells his wife, somebody was able to when he's not Jewish, he says, "Behold, you are betrothed to me when you will convert." Okay, when you will convert. The Gemara says it doesn't work. Why not?
But his father is going to die at some point.
Okay.
But he may have died before his father. So he may not never get it anyway. He was a hunter.
Maybe. Another argument. So the Orach Chaim asked this question, and the Orach Chaim says, first he says that first of all, there is a concept also in halacha, I'm not going to go into it, that even if you cannot sell something which will only going to apply in the future, but if you selling something of the future for something for a valuable necessity that the seller needs for today, you can't live without it. So we are making an exception. And somehow Esau said, I need the lentils today, whatever. There's another discussion that maybe he took an oath. That's why he told him take an oath. When you take an oath, to sell it to me. Right? Jacob tells them, I want you to swear to me that you sell it. The idea of taking an oath, then it is enforcing the sale even for something which doesn't exist. Because the buyer feels like it's going to happen. I got an oath, I got a shua. The Rechaim discusses it. But what I want to talk about now is not so much about the legal concept, but more about the greatness of Yaakov in this whole story. The Medrash tells us, and the famous words in the story of the Parsha, "Vayisrotzetzu abanim bekirba," that the children were kind of fighting in a womb. So the Medrash says, what were they fighting? And Rashi actually brings it, indicating by the word ritza. Ritza means kind running towards something. There was a fight, a struggle, which it has to do and associated with a taking a run, an escape. That's how the word idrotzetzu. Rashi says, yes, there was a struggle in the womb, which had to do with a physical trying to escape or kind of running out of the womb. What happened? And that was the difficulty of the pregnancy. Rivka felt she was walking by a house of idol worship, a church, and she feels like the baby inside her is looking to run out towards the church. He's feeling like he wants to be a part of it. And a kid is that wanting to go to church. The Goyim don't want to go to church. Then the strange thing is when she walked by a house of holiness, a house of God service, and again, he's pulling himself towards it. That's the Sroitzitzu. And that's why she went to seek out the advice of the sages, as the verse says in verse 22, and they told her, you have two separate children, you have twins. It's not the same child who's kind of schizophrenic. Here he wants to go to church, and here he wants to go to shul. He can't make up his mind. I'm going to give him some medicine. No, just two separate children, and each child is going to his direction. That's the famous story. But the Zohar HaKadosh in the Medrash also mentioned, but the Zohar is very clear. It says that Esav is not the same Esav that we know after growing up. Because it's impossible for Yitzchak and Rivka, such holy people, the patriarch Yitzchak, matriarch Rivka, for them to carry in their womb a child who literally wants to go worship idols, and is the child that we later recognize as Esav, does not make any sense. There's no way that you're going to have a child like this. And in the Zohar HaKadosh is being explained that Yitzchak and Esav were both very special holy souls, but each one had a different direction in the way they are going to communicate in their relationship with God. Jacob is the Jacob that we know. His life is going to be living a righteous life. A righteous life like a tzaddik. He is going to serve God ishtam, simply, hiding and closed in the tents of study, removed from the world, making sure that the world doesn't attract him, doesn't affect him, living a awesome life, an holy life, without any challenges and difficulties. It's like the tzaddik, it's like the righteous person who has no inclination. I'm not dealing with evil. The evil is not a candidate, is not an option to consider. Esav, in the other end, His soul was tended to be, which we call in the words of the Rambam, a kovesh et yitzro, the one who conquers his evil inclination. It's not going to be always righteous. He wants to face evil, to be challenged by evil, and obviously overcome it. That's the fun. To be secluded and removed and not knowing anything about the world out there is nice, but it's not exciting. I want to be presented with challenges. He's the ace of soul. He is going to be facing temptation of world, but overcome it. Let me prove the evil inclination that I'm stronger than it. Maimonides wrote a book called Shmone Prakim, the 8 chapters of Rambam. This is the introduction to Sanhedrin. You heard about it. He has a beautiful introduction, where he actually talks about these two personalities. He doesn't discuss it in the context of Yaakov and Esav, but he talks there as these two individuals, the two soul types, which are either pious in a way that don't deal with the world, or as the Tanya puts it in the Alter Rebbe, in Tanya talks about the tzaddik who would uprooted his evil inclination, doesn't have any issues, doesn't have any dealings. And then there is the tzaddik, not the tzaddik, the Beinani, which he calls, which he has struggle, you know. But the struggle doesn't allow the evil to overcome him. He keeps on beating him on the head to a point that he puts him to sleep. Don't get up. If you try to that, then he wakes up. He keeps on subduing him. What?
Is another zetz.
Another zetz until he realizes that he has to sleep. He doesn't want him. He does, but it's not removed. He's not eradicated. He's not uprooted. He's always there. That was the intentional, ideal Esav persona. That's what Esav did. Eventually, however, he did not use his choices properly, and evil overcame him. And he became the hunter, the cheater, and onward, the murderer. But that wasn't the original plan for Esav. The original plan is Esav is just as good as Yaakov. With this, the Zohar explains another statement by the Medrash about the struggle, the fight, what happened between Yaakov and Esav. Because if you look at the commentaries, there's all kinds of ways to explain what happened in the womb. What are they struggling? By the way, one of the commentators, who did I see saying it? Was it the Cheskuni or the Sforno? One of the early commentators, they say that the struggle was very simple. The skin of Jacob was very smooth, as we read in the verse. He came out a very smooth skin. Esav was very hairy, right? And being in the womb, he kept on steching him. He kept on, the hair of Esav kept on poking the smooth skin of Yaakov. And that's what the struggle there. Get away from me. You're poking me. That's what Sam the Cheskuni, I believe, said. Mordechai, one of them. But the Medrash tells us that fight which went on in the womb was a fight over the two worlds. Olam hazeh ve'olam haba. This world and the world to come. What do you mean a fight over the worlds? I thought there's no fight. Esav, you probably want this world. Yaakov, your interest is Gan Eden, Olam haba, the world to come. No fight. No. They were fighting because Esav wanted the world to come, And Jacob also wanted this world. Jacob wanted this world according to the Kabbalah and Hasidus. He wanted this world in addition to the world to come, because he knew that you can get your portion in the world to come by servicing God in this world. So I need to have this world to accomplish my portion in the world to come. Esau, the original Esau, the way we explained earlier, wanted this world, obviously, but he also said, I want the world to come, because he knew that the ultimate goal is not to be stuck here. Ultimately, where am I going to make it in the world to come? So originally, they were fighting over both worlds. And the only way you can understand this Medrash, by the way, the Rabbi once spoke about it, 1981, I think. He spoke about it and he said that the only way you can understand this Medrash, that Esav wants the world to come, what is he going to do with the world to come? You can only explain it if you study the Zohar and you understand that Esav, in his original development as an Esav, was not meant to be the Esav that we ended up getting. He was supposed to be the son of Isaac and Rebekah, but not the, what do you call it, the stereotype, what do you mean? Stereotype of Jacob, but rather to be not a simple tzaddik, not the one who is removed from the world, but the one who is dealing with the world and overcoming the world. That was Esav. And in that case, we can understand why Esav wants Gan Eden and why he wants Olam Haba. Ultimately, what happens is God tells Jacob, you're going to get the world to come. Why? So the Zohar says, because Jacob was studying Torah. And in order to cultivate the world and making the world that it needs to be ready to inherit the share in the world to come, it's not enough to fight over your evil inclination and win it. The way to win it and the way to cultivate it is through Torah study. There is the value in Torah study which no other service can accomplish. Torah study has the value of logic. And when you are presenting evil with the logic why it doesn't make sense to follow you, and you convince them, then it's eternal. You can overcome it. You can kind of overwhelm it. I'm going to do what I want, and I'm not listening to your world. And the world is going to be quiet, maybe a little bit, but you didn't transform. The world doesn't agree with you. It just gives in to you because you're strong and you have your ideals right. The other direction is to come to the world and explain the world why you also need to follow the ways I follow. Why does it make sense to listen to God? Why does it make sense to keep the commandments? Why does it make sense to behave like a godly person? If the world listens to you with the Torah's instruction, then the world in its own transforms its own nature and becomes a what's it called, a partner, and joins you with your service. That can only happen to Torah. Knowledge, yes.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure.
So if
What's your name?
you know Steve.
Steve Lidas.
Yeah.
David Schneider is testing me. He thought like my memory is not working.
When you get a little older, Rabbi.
What? But you see, I remember. Did you
Just
name
don't
Steve
ask me
Lidas?
Huh?
Name is Steve Lidas.
Yeah. Just don't ask me my phone number.
I don't even ask myself my phone number.
So my question is that if to deserve the life after, you need to study Torah, why would Jacob ask Esau to give up his portion just for a lentil? It seems like it's not a fair trade. like if it's something so valuable, why would you ask somebody to give something so important up for a lentil?
So it's a very good question. And that obviously brings out another aspect into Esav's disrespect to this whole concept of the firstborn. The verse tells us very clearly, and Rashi explains it even better. The verse says, Yaakov, on verse 34, it says, Yaakov Natan leIsav, Jacob gave Esau lechem unezid adashim, bread and the lentil stew. Vayoichal vayesh. He ate and drank. Vayokom vayelach. He got up and left. When I was a little kid, my teacher in school translated. Vayoichal vayesh. He ate and he drank. Vayokom, he got up without benching. Vayelach, and he left. Vayivez Esav esabchero. And Esav, here is translated as spurned the birthright. He disgraced it.
Today they call that being transactional. It was the immediate need overrode everything else.
But it's not only that. Vayives in Hebrew was a bizayon. He showed disrespect to the firstborn. And Rashi tells us, what is it important to mention that we're talking about a deal, we're talking about a purchase, we're talking about what he ate. So why do you emphasize that? Says Rashi, Ida katuv al risho. These three words testifies about the wicked behavior of Esav. Shebiza avidosei shel malchut. To be a firstborn, you have rights, not only rights, gains. He is meant to be the representative in the service of God. Like I said, before the Kohanim, it was the Bechorim, it was the firstborn. By giving it up for lentil, says, I couldn't care less something. It means to me nothing. And if someone says it means to me nothing, then it's worse than someone looking for an exchange of a sandwich because he's so desperately hungry. He could have walked away and say, Nebuch, feel bad for Esau. I mean, bad, hungry, starving. People gave away sometimes for food. Greater valuables than what the food is actually worth. There's actually a story. It's a story, a famous story that they say that just like selling selling the share in the world to come, it is a story which relates to this concept of Esau. They were sitting and there was this, I think this is the story. Somebody came to the Rebbe of Apta, maybe to the Mordechai, one of those early Hasidic masters, and he wanted the blessing for parnasa, for sustenance. The Rebbe told him, listen, when you get home, the first deal that somebody is selling you, you say, I want to buy something. You come into an inn, you come into a hotel, you come into whenever you meet a group of people, say, I have 10 cupcakes at a very cheap, minimal amount of money. Anybody wants to sell me something for that? And then you're going to continue, buy, sell, buy. That's how you're going to start. So he comes into this krachma is like an inn, and he sees a group of Jews sitting there, and he says, oh, maybe somebody wants to sell me something. I have 10 cupcakes. Everyone's laughing, 10 cupcakes. What are you going to buy for 10 cupcakes? So one of the guys said, let me take it in this man. He says, yes, 10 kopkas, I'm ready to sell you my share in the world to come. You want to buy it? Okay. The Rebbe told me the first deal I say I should get. So if that's what I'm being offered, that's what I'm being offered. He gives him the 10 kopkas, and the guy signs him a deal. You have my share. The guy comes home and he tells his wife, hey, don't, you wouldn't believe what happened. Sitting in the guy comes in, he's ready to offer, a deal. Anybody who wants to sell him something, I sold them my share in the world to come. He opens his eyes. Are you crazy? You sold your share in the world to come for 10 because you go right away and get it back from him. I don't want to leave with a husband who doesn't have a share in the world to come. Okay, let it go. If it's so important for you, I'm not going to destroy my shalom bayit, my peace in the house, because I don't think this whole thing matters. He goes back and the guy says, I'm not sending it back. Come on, 100 ruble. No, 1,000 ruble. He knows he can't come home. His wife is mad and the whole house gets destroyed for that stupid sell. And the guy is holding very strong. The seller, I'm sorry, the buyer is holding himself. I'm not very happy with the share in the world to come. Came to an astronomer's prize. I didn't know what to do. So he goes to the Rebbe. The same Rebbe who gave him the idea. He says, listen, follower over here, shoot, it's crazy. First, he came in and he was looking for a deal, and I was, what do I care? I gave something to sell you. But now, when I want it back, he's charging me an arm and a leg. The Rebbe said, well, so pay it. He also said I should pay it. He said, yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth it. Okay. Then he pays it. And he pays it. And he gets his portion back. Then he says, Rebbe, was that worth it? Let's say 20,000 rubles. Is that fair? So the Rebbe told him, listen, when you sold them, you shared in the world to come. At that point, the way you were marking this whole thing, it wasn't even worth the 10 rubles. You shared in the world to come was worth garnished, nothing. Because you were something that was important. Now that you're ready to spend all this money to get your share of the world to come, your share is worth even much more than that. You got a very good deal for this amount of money. What's the point? The point is what happens here with the rights of the firstborn. When Esav turns to Jacob and says, come on, lentils? Yeah, that's the lentils, who needs it? So it was only worth a lentil. It was only worth a lentil. And the value the value of a rewarding concept is a lot of times worth the amount you're ready to spend for it. The moment you disrespect it, it becomes valueless. So I'm sure if Asa would buy it back, it would be much more than a lentil. What's the idea? But I want to see it got late suddenly. But the idea is this clock right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the idea? The idea what I want to come out is that for Yaakov, sharing the world to come was a fight. He was ready to fight for it. He wanted it. He wanted this world, but obviously the goal is not this world. His entire life was in order to get in the world to come. The only thing that he wanted this world was in order from God to this world to the world to come. But Olam Abba, the world to come is the most precious commodity that ever exists. It's being connected with God, experiencing godliness. There is no greater pleasure, neither for the soul or for the body, There's no greater achievement that the neshama can get than attaching itself back to God, and especially after doing all this great good deeds in this world, that your closeness to God becomes even closer and greater than the time that you were before coming down to this world. So Yaakov is obviously looking for the world to come and fighting, as the Medrash says, with Esav on both worlds, because he wants this world too in order to get to the world to come, but ultimately the world to come. And this is the greatness of the story that I began. For a Rebbe who knows, who understands what the world to come is, to do a favor for another Jew, to let him be placed to rest before Yom Tov, so his soul can rest in peace on the eve of the holiday, is for the Rebbe so important that he's ready to look away from his world to come. This is not, God forbid, coming from a disrespect to the world to come. And despite understanding and knowing and realizing what the world to come is, yet, he says, the other person's spiritual gain, physical gain, pleasure is for me more important than my own spiritual pleasure, than my own spiritual gain. This morning, before I came to shul, I got news about a certain individual which is related to me. His name was Shalom Lapidus, of blessed memory. He was a young man. He's a few years younger than me. His sister is married to my brother Zalman in Argentina. He was actually working in the yeshiva in Argentina when my son Levi was here. What was it, like 8 years ago, 10 years ago? And he married his son, got married in Hanover, Germany, the daughter of the Shliach in Hanover, Germany. The wedding was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But he was on a Wednesday night, and Friday night he was, and he was in coma till this morning when he passed away.
In Germany.
No, they actually brought him to Israel last Friday in a special ambulance plane. They were hoping maybe they can do something, but anyway, a young man, 50 years old, exactly 50 years old. So my son tells me this morning, I know that he learned by it in yeshiva in Argentina. So I said, Levi, you remember Sholi? He said, oh, he was a nice guy. You know, in yeshiva, there was the barrier of language because the classes were in Hebrew and in Spanish. We spoke English and Yiddish. It wasn't easy for them to settle. David Schneider can tell you was in Argentina a few weeks ago. He told me it was the best rabbi speech he ever heard. He didn't understand one single word. It was all in Spanish. So anyway, so he tells me that he was there. And while being there, in yeshiva, he says one that was actually Yutet Kislev with a Farbrengen yeshiva, and he was speaking about one of the principles of Hasidus is Avas Yisrael, to love your fellow Jew. And he says that he wanted to give an example. What does it mean to care for somebody else? As this Rabbi Lapid has been, for his memory, he said that maybe the last Shabbat, I was walking from my apartment to the yeshiva. And I noticed there was a sign on a certain apartment for rent. In Argentina, you don't go to Zillow. It's like the good old days. You hang up a sign on the porch for sale, for rent. And I was walking and I saw that somebody's putting up a sign, and I knew that a colleague of mine in the yeshiva is actually desperately looking for an apartment for rent. So I said, you know what, I'm going to tell him I saw, and I'm going to tell him the number where to call. But then I realized it's Shabbat. I shouldn't talk to him about rentals and taking down numbers. I continued walking, but then I said, it dawned on me, look, he needs apartment. the fact that I am not maybe doing the exact right thing by thinking about it, recording in my memory the number, I'm going to deal with God about it. But my friend needs an apartment, and that's more important for me than my spiritual, what's it called? And that's what he did. He said, I went back, he memorized the number, shared it with his friend, and gave up some of his spiritual ruchaniyut in order to benefit someone begat. One in Olam Haba. By Tabonim, Rashi says, by Drotetzu said Rashi, they were fighting because, getting pulled to the different direction. But then Rashi says also from the Medrash, by Drotetzu says Rashi, מתרוצצים זה עם זה ומריבים בנחלת שני עולמות. They were struggling and fighting with each other, wanting to inherit both worlds, this world and the world to come. And despite inheriting the world to come, so we have to also remember that helping someone goes long and far further than Olam Haba. You have to be able to give up your Olam Haba to help somebody else. Have a good Shabbos, everybody. Laila Tov, like I said, we should only have good news. Ma'achenu b'nei Yisrael from everyone. Any other questions? You good to go?
Comment.
Huh?
This, the yeshiva in Buenos Aires is a beautiful yeshiva. And walking around that area, I can see how hard it is to get a good apartment in that area.
So you know it's beautiful because you were watching it from the outside.
The guards wouldn't let me in. They said a foreigner
That's why
can't speak English.
That's why it's
Speaks English. No.
That's why it's good. That's why you can still go around and say it's a beautiful yeshiva. I was inside. I'm not going to tell you what I saw.
Question?
Yes.
So if somebody sells their share in Olam, when they pass away, where do they go?
So first of all, you can still inherit a new portion from after the sell. Now, the sell can be whatever I achieved from the beginning till now. Wherever I achieve from now till now. And the second can be you have to go down to be reincarnated, with the God, with the land. You have to send you back, start over again. Another option.
But isn't it slightly different if you're selling it not for your own personal, but you're selling it for somebody else?
Exactly. That's the trick over here. Some say that it's okay to sell it because the selling itself gives you such a portion in the world to come, which is not included in the sell. The portion that you got for being ready to sell it in order to do something good for somebody else.
Because you're not doing it for your own personal good. You're
Exactly.
doing it for somebody.
Exactly.
Like with the mikveh as well. It wasn't like just personal gain. It was
Exactly.
for the
I'm
community.
selling it besides the achievement of this actual sale. I'm selling you everything besides. And that achievement of that sale can override the whatever Olam Haba was in the cell that you sold. I actually saw a letter. There was a Hasidic Jew in Jerusalem. He's actually what is it? Nachos. It's dairy.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to have nachos, if you're not fleishig, see if anybody wants.
No, I would put it on the table.
Put it. What else do you have? Don't you have my wife's credit card? She told me. Oh, I thought you're trying to do a trade. They give me nachos instead of the credit cards.
No.
Thank you very much.
Now we can tell who ate what for dinner.
What?
We can tell who had meat for dinner. And
Who said there
didn't.
was meat? Maybe it was old soup. We don't know. But Fedman, please help us with some nachos. Once we go to the garden. What was I saying? I saw a letter. I have a friend who lives in Moscow. His name is David Munchain. Some of you met him. His father was a very special man, great chassid, wrote many books and articles. After he passed away, I saw a letter that he wrote to another Jew, which I actually know who this Jew is. A great Torah scholar, not a Chabad guy. He writes him in the letter as follows. Last night, which is Friday night, we met in Shul, and you expressed to me how difficult is it for you since you married your child and you committed yourself some great expenses, and the debt of the expenses of the money you borrowed is really weighing it. That you had agreed to somebody who offered you, listen to that, to give you part of his salary, while every part of Gan Eden you make from your learning goes to his account. So I'm paying you, you sit and study. I'm going to pay you extra money so you can pay off your debt. But whatever when you study Torah, it's a mitzvah. And that credit for the mitzvah you do, I want to go on my account. It should be deposited by me. It's like Issachar and Zvulun, you know. Zvulun was offering Issachar, sit and learn, we'll take care of you. But here is, will take care of you by letting you study. They didn't ask Issachar to get their portion in the world to come. They just, we're going to support you like people support Torah scholars, people support the schools, people support yeshivas. But here is some whole different story. You're going to give, share. And Rabbi Munchain writes them, I was shocked and surprised that you can even consider such a thing. You know what it means, the world to come? You know what is being explained, that this is the ultimate reward and the ultimate life, that it's brought down in Chassidut, that in the Talmud actually, that it is worth it to go through the whole set of perjury, of punishment, in pain, in order to go and to achieve finally the world to come, because that's the goal. So Imam says you're going to get in there, and they're going to tell you, listen, you really deserve the world to come, going for a little bit, but then they're going to tell you, I'm sorry, your time has come up. Now is your friend's share. You got to live. It's the friend that you gave the portion for, that for him to come in. How would you feel? How would you deal? He says, no one ever gave up a share in the world to come for livelihoods. Yes, Reb Nochem, like we said before, gave it up to build a mikveh. The Rebbe gave it up so somebody can get buried. But to give it up because you should be able to pay up your debt. It's not meant to be used for these kinds of purposes. He writes him, and I remember reading the letter, and I was so inspired to see that somebody is so, takes it literally, the world to come, with its pleasures, with its enjoyments. Anyway, I have another class coming up in Hebrew, so I wish you all live at home. Pleasure to see you. Come again and come more often.
I love your story.
My story is good. That's not my story. The stories which I study. How you doing? Everything okay?
Yep.
When was the last time you were in Israel? I remember you used to travel to Israel pretty often.
Yeah, until COVID.
Since COVID, you didn't go?
Pardon?
Since COVID. Are you feeling okay?
Yep.
Are you still living down here on you in contact with Stan? Not so
No,
much.
we sort of have a falling out.
Oh, really?
No, I adored him.
No, he doesn't live here anymore. He's like in Whidbey Island.
Well, yeah, I know that they had
He moved. Are your children?
So one's in Michigan, one's in Los Angeles. And everybody's
Everybody what?
is doing fine.
Very nice. God bless you. We'll see you again. All the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. Bye, everybody.
תודה רבה רבה, להתראות.
Toda rabba. Bernard, everybody. Julie, everybody. I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You're told.
Thank you.